Get started. Hi, my name is Joan Grimes, and this is my daughter, Jennifer Wallace. We are estate planning attorneys in Walnut Creek, California. We are doing a program today on hiring of caregivers. This has become a real issue, and we really want people to understand some of the legal issues surrounding the hiring of caregivers so that hopefully you can make better decisions.
Yeah. A lot of times we see clients and they tell us, oh, I have a caregiver that I love. I just write her a check every month or, for every week. We know that they're paying them under the table, and which is very common, especially in the retirement communities that are in our area. However, we're starting to see more and more the legal issues surrounding this informal hiring or arrangement. And it's getting really scary. So we don't mean to scare you, but we mean to show you how serious this is and the legal ramifications of doing this. Just to start off with a short little example, we have a wonderful gentleman who has had a wonderful caregiver that he's loved, working with him and his wife for 7 years. They just paid her weekly. They had an agreement. They had a great relationship, but they were moving to a different state. And when they told her that they were moving, they said, we're not going to need you anymore. And she filed just last week for unemployment. So now the California EDD now has sent them, our clients, all of these notices saying, your employee has filed for unemployment. We have quickly had to hire employment attorneys. And probably there will be audits by the IRS and Franchise Tax Board going back the full 7 years. So
it's just something really we don't want to have happen to you.
Yeah.
And really what's happened is the times have changed. 20 years ago, it was absolutely the practice for people just to pay these people by check.
And I'm nodding my head. I don't know. Is that what?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. 20 years ago when I was 10, that is exactly what we did.
Right. But that was what we did. However, the law has really changed, and there's very, very strict requirements now. One of the things to know is that if you pay someone who works in your home more than $2,100 a year, they are considered to be an employee. They are not considered to be an independent contractor. So you have a problem right there. So if you are paying them more than $2,100, then you actually have an employee. Mm-hmm. Now this may seem very wrong to you, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
The public policy really is that these people have not been being provided with benefits. They have not been getting credit for their Social Security. They've not been getting overtime and health insurance and all these other things. And so this is kind of the way, not only has the state of California, but the federal government is cracking down on this.
Yeah, and in 2013, California passed the Domestic Worker Bill of Rights. And that really reformed our labor code to say that a domestic worker who provides services in your home, they are entitled to overtime pay. And it's 1.5 times their regular rate for any hours that they work that exceed 9 hours per day or 45 hours in a week. So if you're just paying somebody under the table, or if you're just paying them with check, you're probably not even keeping track of how many hours they worked that week, or if they've worked 9 hours a day. It's also very common for caregivers to live in the home. And when they live in the home, they are considered working for the most part that whole time. So it is really, really important that you're very careful with these issues. So
you basically have 2 options here with your caregivers. You either hire them through an agency, which is what we would absolutely encourage you to do, is to start interviewing agencies and to hire them through an agency, because then the agency is required to, 1, do all the background checks to make sure they're the appropriate employee for you to be using. Mm-hmm. 2, they are in charge of the training and the management of the employee, which is very important that that person is in fact being trained properly, and has the right management. So they're like lifting people the right way and they're doing all their jobs correctly. And third, that they're in compliance with state and federal laws with regards to making sure there's workers' comp insurance, that these people are having benefits, they're being paid the appropriate
tax withholding,
the tax withholdings. And so those three things are super important, and they're very, very hard for you to do as an individual.
I mean, in our law firm, we use a payroll company, and I submit all of the hours that our employees work, and then they calculate all the withholdings, the California tax withholdings, and it's complicated.
And that's just one part of it. Then we have to have workers' comp insurance. We have to have training and management. We have to have an employee handbook. I mean,
it's a lot.
It's a lot of work, and it's very hard for individuals to be able to do this, especially when they're already under so much stress and that you have a family member who needs care. So first and foremost, we would encourage you to hire through an agency. Here in California, people have a lot of resources that are available to them. California actually has a caregiver resource centers that are available throughout the state of California. There's one here in San Francisco that covers the Bay Area counties.
Called the Family Care, sorry, I'm reading this, Family Caregiver Alliance of the Bay Area. And they have a lot, www.caregiver.org, and they have a lot of really wonderful resources.
Yes, and so that would be the first place you should go. And if you need specific help, I would go to their information, so that send them an email. But there's also other great places. AARP, if you need food.
AARP has this brochure on their website that offers all of these organizations for resources, Meals on Wheels, Adult Protective Services, all of these fantastic resources. I was very, very impressed with their website.
And so there are lots of resources out there for you. Sometimes people still feel overwhelmed, and that, all they can do is sort of care for this loved one, and they are not in a position to go to these resources. So there are lots of private agencies that you hire them, who make assessments, and who are social workers or nurses, and they make assessments of what your patient needs, your spouse needs, your loved one needs, and then they in fact help you interview agencies to hire someone. So don't feel like if you don't have the ability to go to these resources, because sometimes people just feel so overwhelmed with what's happening in their lives.
The other thing that I get really frustrated, to be honest, hearing is a lot of people say, but I can't afford to go through an agency, because if I had to pay 1.5 times for overtime, I couldn't afford to make these payments. Like, I can't afford this. And my response is, you can't afford to not do this. If you are not in compliance, the franchise tax board audits, the IRS audits, the penalties associated with not doing this right. I mean, I really just truly feel like people cannot afford to not do this correctly. And if it really comes down to that you don't have enough money to pay these caregivers through agencies because of all these extra fees, we really just need to reevaluate your living situation in general. Maybe you shouldn't be at home anymore with a, caregiver staff.
Or if you don't have enough money, you really may qualify for Medi-Cal and for in-home support services, where the state of California, in fact, pays to have people come in and help you.
Yeah.
Many people are in fact would qualify to have in-home support services if they only applied.
Yeah.
And so
that's a good point. If you are determined to stay in your home.
If you are determined to stay in your home. Another thing that people overlook all the time is the adult day programs. So many of these people are still able.
What are adult day programs?
So adult day programs are geared for adults who have disabilities. They can be Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's. They can they be in a wheelchair. Just people who are still at home and really have significant disabilities. Significant disabilities. These day programs are really meant to be respite care for the people at home. So that, but for this kind of adult day respite care, these people probably would be in a skilled nursing facility because they really have significant problems. But these adult day programs are pretty much all nonprofits. They receive state, federal funding, VA funding. I would absolutely look into day programs that are in your area.
But yeah, I think if the issue comes down to we don't feel like we have enough money to do it through the proper channels and through the agency, that actually needs to turn the conversation needs to go in a different
The paradigm needs to be changed.
Yeah, because unfortunately in the probate court, we do see a lot of caregivers now filing claims against the estate, sometimes for hundreds of thousands of dollars for back wages, for failure to compensate for overtime. So, or they get injured on the job, there's just, I truly feel that you don't have enough money to hire independently and to not take these precautions.
And a lot of these caregivers, they do not, I don't think, maybe there are some that would intentionally trying to sort of lead you down the garden path so they can get a big claim. Yeah. But I don't think most of them intend this. I think what really ends up happening is that after you let them go, the person dies, they don't know where to turn, and then they hear from somebody else, yes, I can make a claim against the estate,
most of these caregivers are phenomenal people.
Absolutely.
Just absolutely. The most wonderful, and of course you want to keep them as part of your family, and they are wonderful. But I they also have to look out for themselves and protect themselves if they get injured or it's nobody's fault here. It's just that the rules have really changed the way people need to do business here.
Absolutely. And there's so much more money involved today than there ever was, 20 or 30 years ago. These properties in these retirement communities are worth a lot of money. And there's a lot of money to be had after your loved one passes away and you pass away for these people to make claims.
Yeah.
So we really want to sort of nip this in the bud and really start talking about the problems. This is a huge area of the law now. We're actually going to do a much longer program on this. This is just sort of a short
little intro of we're scared what we're still seeing.
Right.
We're still seeing the level of people hiring caregivers to come to their homes under the table.
This is still considered to be the norm for people to hire caregivers directly and pay them without having the proper withholdings and the proper benefits in place. And we really need to help you to understand this is not the way we should be doing business.
Yeah, but there's alternatives.
There's lots of alternatives.
And there's resources out there.
And we should have a full program on this probably in the next 30 days on our website.
Really?
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Hopefully. Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Thanks.